Hey folks, Jake Schneider here from Life as an Outsider. I'm here in my hometown of Ankeny at Big Al's BBQ. I'm meeting with Al Laudencia, the owner. We sit down and we talk barbecue, but more importantly, we talk about community and the necessity to embrace your community and pour into it. It's really good barbecue and a really good conversation. Come on in.
Not so long ago, didn't need much to make us happy, but now things have changed. We've got problems that take us over. Yeah, I don't need a thing.
My guest today is Al Laudencia from Big Al's BBQ here in Ankeny in West Des Moines. Al, how you doing today, man?
Great, man. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. I love barbecue, so I always love to sit down and talk barbecue with anybody. I mean, I built my own smoker when I was 21 out of an old refrigerator, so the fact that anybody can do it well, it's a testament to just how good your food is and how dedicated you are to it.
You know, it's interesting you bring that up. You know, barbecue started out as a hobby for me. You know, really, the neatest thing about it is that why I was so interested is when I was living in the South, I was given some food to try, and I loved it so much. And I asked the person that gave it to me, "How do you do this? What do you do?" So forth and so on. And I fell in love right away with it. Number one, because of the flavor, the unique flavor. I never had anything like it. The other reason why I fell in love with it was because of the allure for me was, why did barbecue come about? How did it come about in the South? Why I love that is because barbecue and the foods that surround it came out of necessity.
Right.
Right. And so what is really neat about it is that in the South in particular, the slaves were given from the slave owners the inferior cuts of meats. And they were told, this is what you get, and this is how you're going to feed your family, and go at it. So these inferior cuts of meats that are given, like the brisket and the pork butts and ribs, are throwaway meat. They were back in the day throwaway meat. And if you cook it traditionally, it's nasty, it's hard, it's tough, right? But with these kind of meats, the way that they found it to be palpable and to actually have some flavor to it is to cook it low and slow. And that's the allure for me, to take something that's absolutely nasty and to cook it at a low temperature for a really long time. And at the end of the day, that is really the secret to barbecue. It's low and slow. That is it. People try to complicate it. It's not. You know, and then everything else that surrounds it with the side dishes, depending upon the area and the region of where in the South you're doing your main meats, will also dictate all of the side dishes, which I love, from okra to mac and cheese to coleslaw to, you know, this goes all down the line. So, at any rate.
Well, and as we were talking before we started recording, you've mentioned your story's been told multiple times, and I think it's very fitting that you got into barbecue, because low and slow over constant heat kind of sounds like your own story as well. I mean, you were going through these trials low and slow. It took a while through constant heat, and so we're not going to get too much into that, because like you said, your story's been told before. We can find that elsewhere, but I really would like to hear, you talked about how you found out one of your friends gave you this meat to try, and you're like, this is incredible, how do you do it? Sounds like that just kind of kick-started that love of barbecue. So give me a brief synopsis. Where did you go from there?
So from there, this all happened in the South, and there were several places that, you know, from Mississippi to Texas to all these places in the South. What I would do is I would take all of the secrets, if you will, and the recipes of what each person did and just made it my own. What I found was there were a lot of similarities, right? There's some places in Kansas City that I learned, some restaurants that are down there that are favorites, from Jack's Stack to Gates Barbecue, that I'd also learned. stuff, if you will. So again, it was the allure. So having lived in the South, what made the movement from the South to come back home to Iowa, because I grew up back here in Iowa, was I ended up moving back to Iowa when I was in my 40s, in with my folks. And in that time, I ended up working at a restaurant. In that time, ended up meeting my wife. In that time, one of the guys that I worked with at this restaurant in West Des Moines, an Italian restaurant in Des Moines, he was also from the South, down in Missouri. And we shared not only the love for the St. Louis Cardinals, which that's another story in itself, but also the love of barbecue. And through our conversations and through our friendship, he ended up selling me his big professional commercial smoker.
There you go.
So what happened was, how we got into that was my wife during one of the a Father's Day 11 years ago, almost 12 years ago, said, okay, go ahead and buy yourself your own smoker. I know that you've got this hobby. I was using a Weber grill, and what ended up happening was she gave me the permission to go ahead and get a smoker, and I, without any hesitation, went out and knew where I could get one and bought a smoker that you pull behind a truck.
There you go.
And so I got this smoker, and we brought it into the driveway of Adel, Iowa, and next thing you know, that there's the neighbors were offering to buy.
Awesome.
From that moment was when I think I knew I had something, and when I told my wife, I said, people are offering to buy from me, I think I'm going to start a catering company. That's where it started. We started a catering company over 11 years ago out of my garage with a smoker outside of the garage in Adel, Iowa, in the cul-de-sac. It's still there, with an oven that was bought from Craigslist, $50 oven, with a stainless steel refrigerator that was bought from a buddy of mine that's still in the garage. That's how it all started. So we just started. The goal was one catering a month. That was the goal. And it was me and then another guy that was washing dishes at the restaurant that I was working at, decided he wanted to come on board. Well, that person is still with me.
That's awesome.
He's here as we speak. He's been with me for 9 years. And we started one catering a month out of the garage. From there, went to a food trailer because we needed a front. Because we were doing it illegally. We were selling barbecue illegally. And how we were able to do the barbecue was I was going door to door, knocking on doors, selling caterings. Again, the goal was just to have one catering a month so that we could take care of whether it be, gas bill, electric bill, school lunches for my daughters, what have you. That's how it started.
Right, yeah.
But then it grew. The word of mouth grew. So.
Well, and it sounds like that's working out really well for you. And what I love in that story is the idea of community that's so present. It all started with one other guy that you found you had kinship with unfortunately the Cardinals and not the Chicago Cubs, but but also your love of barbecue, somebody else from the South. And honestly, that's what this whole podcast, that's what all my conversations always boil down to, is that community. And it even ties into, now you're selling barbecue illegally, which we don't advise, but it happens, to neighbors, door to door. And that's how word of mouth grows. And so it just sounds like community has played such a big part in where you are today.
It is the community. At the end of the day, we have a social responsibility as a business, whether you be restaurant or jewel or whatever. You do have a social responsibility, even in textbooks. But in my opinion, because at the end of the day, it's your neighbors that are supporting you, right? And in turn, you support them. That's community. That's sense of community, right? And so, starting from the east side to the south side, all sorts of background of community. Where there was a really strong sense of community as of recent, within the past 3 years, was during COVID. We had a restaurant in West Des Moines. There was a dark time that the whole entire world experienced, And during that time, people didn't have their jobs. People weren't allowed to leave their house. Restaurants in particular were narrowed down to only being able to do takeout.
Right, yeah.
And we're not a takeout restaurant. We weren't a takeout restaurant. And during that time, what had happened was we had 2 restaurants at the time, and we had to close down one of them. And in Adel, Iowa, we were able to give away free food. And that's what we did. What happened was the community got together. Now, the neat thing about sparking this movement called the free meal movement was what started as the restaurant giving free food sparked neighborhoods and individuals writing checks to us, wanting us to keep going and giving free food, which lasted for about 3 months, which at the end of the day fed almost 10,000 people.
That's crazy.
And which it eventually not only made national news, but also made the front pages of the Des Moines Register and things of that sort. And you talk about community, what that proved, or the symbolism behind it is, it doesn't take a lot to make something and make an impact that's worldly, right? Right here in little Adel, Iowa, started out as something so small. The town's only 5,000 people, fed over 10,000. Around a 50-mile radius of feeding their community of the police officers, firefighters, hospital workers, truck drivers, the homeless, the fortunate, the not so fortunate. They fed that many people. That's, in my opinion, that's amazing. But it was a community that got together and knew that they had to step in, that had the opportunity to step in, and all we did was help that move along. So that sense of community, absolutely, and it's pretty amazing, and it created a buzz. And if that, not to get all preachy and stuff, but if something that small out of a little restaurant that's only 1,200 square feet can create something that huge, what would happen? What would happen if states and countries and world and what would happen if people decide they want to do something good?
Yes,
because it caught in wildfire quickly, fast, and with breadth and depth. For something good. And that, my friend, is, as far as sense of community, that was a really huge thing that happened back during the COVID time. Taking something that was absolutely dark and the light still broke through, right? It trumped the darkness. So, yeah, it's been a great ride.
It's all about community. That's what it always boils down to. And we've talked a little bit about your first food trailer. The one question I do want to ask about your past is, did you always want to own a restaurant growing up, or like?
No, I didn't know what I wanted to do.
Dude, you and me both.
I didn't know what I wanted to do, but it was a calling, right? I'm a behavioral scientist by trade. I always thought I was going to become a doctor. Having started school at Iowa State University, I thought I was going to become a doctor. Well, I found out very quickly that I'm not very smart. I'm not very smart, scholastically. But I will tell you what I fell in love with. It was when I started waiting tables and bartending and things of that sort. It didn't even feel like work, right? So that was the jobs that helped push me through school. I started in the restaurant industry when I was 13 years old in Atlantic, Iowa as a busboy. So I never thought of ever owning a restaurant. Doing big things in my life, maybe, but I never thought of doing big things as far as owning a restaurant. And when I made that decision to make the will of mine not my will anymore, and made that decision that it was God's will, that whatever He decides He wants me to do in life, I will follow. And from that moment, the spark and the magic of taking something that's absolutely impossible made possible. Much like the feeding of the 5,000. Mark 6:37-44, where they had 5,000 men and they fed them with 5 loaves and 2 fish. Well, that wasn't their doing.
No
God had a whole nother story of what He wanted. That was the same with me. My story doesn't make sense. It's in our commercial. Asian man cooking Southern style barbecue in Des Moines, Iowa. It makes no sense.
It's written down here on my piece of paper, Southern Barbecue by an Asian man.
Yeah, but it makes no sense according to us. But to turn it over to something much bigger than yourself, you will then find your true passion of what you're supposed to do then. Because then you find out it's not about you. And it's about community.
Mm-hmm.
It's about giving back community. It's not about yourself anymore. It's about everybody else. And when people can find that spark, that's where the magic happens. That's when the blessings, that's when things happen in life. At least for me.
Mm-hmm.
At least for me. Because it wasn't always like that. It wasn't always like that for me. In my past, in the South in St. Louis, Missouri, although great, has also had a dark side to it. And that's another story in its own.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah.
I think one thing that you touched on is, you touched on the fact that, you know, when I was doing what I loved, which was working in restaurants, bussing tables, it was what I loved. It didn't feel like work. That's so often thrown around, that idea of, if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. I don't quite hear it that way. What I hear is, you'll work, but it won't feel like work. Like, you'll work twice as hard. And I've found that in my own life when I'm working with somebody that I really enjoy working with. Am I working hard? Yeah, absolutely. But I enjoy it a lot more. And I think that's something that's reflected in your story as well.
When you're filled up with something that's supposed to be filled up with, the energy to move forward will push you forward in an optimum level of your output. Much like a car or, a luxury, not a luxury, but a sports car. You know, you got to put a certain fuel inside of that. But once you put it in the right fuel, then it's optimized. The performance of it is optimized. But it is true, and it sounds so cliche. You know, it really does sound so cliche, and I never understood that. But I have a lot of friends. I have friends that was able to share that same story, and they too found out, like musicians. I have a friend that's a musician that was a sales manager for a petroleum company. And he'd ask me, hey, I lost my job. What do I do for the rest of my life? Blah 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 blah. I just said, what's your passion?
Mm-hmm.
So you find something that you're passionate about, and again, you work, but it's not work. You're doing your talent, something that you love, So once you find that niche, then no bars are held. Yeah, and that's what it was for me. I can't to this date. I can't believe that I'm getting paid to do this. There has to be, however, balance. I'm a family man,
right?
So I have 3 daughters and a wife, and if you leave it to me, I'll just work and I'll keep going. And I'll put blinders on because I just love what I do, and I love to be where I'm at. But I also have other obligations and other responsibilities as a husband and as a father. But it's true. It sounds so cliche, but it is very true. And the ones that, I shouldn't say that are successful in life, but the ones that are significant in life, they're also saying the same thing. I found what I love.
Mm-hmm.
I found what I love to do. I challenge you to find anybody that's not significant in their role of what they're doing in life that will preach the same thing. Yeah, and it's true, at least for me anyway.
You talk a little bit about that balance as well, being a dad and a father, being a dad and a father, of course, but being a husband and a father. How do you keep that balance? How do you maintain that balance?
It's what's the word I'm looking for? You have to be you have to make time. You have to make time for it. It's intentional.
Mm-hmm.
Relationships are intentional. What you do has to be intentional. So you're very cognizant of what's going on. You have to make that effort. So once you make that effort, knowing that the time is a constraint, for me, once I do have the time, I really got to make it quality, because I don't necessarily have the quantity. There's only 24 hours in a day, right? So when I get the time to spend with the family, I really got to make, I got to make as much as I can with it. there's the beauty of technology too. Now, this was never, I don't know that it would ever happen if back in the day, so I'm 56 years old, if I was in my 20s, that this would have happened. But technology's been really wonderful, where you can do FaceTiming with your family, where you can cell phone. Cell phone's a big deal. It may not be to you guys because it's been in your lifetime, but it wasn't in my lifetime. Growing up in my 20s, you know, but being able to communicate with my daughters that way, or even seeing them, seeing them, and things of that sort. And it's the same thing with my wife. Constant communication with them on that level too. But I have to be very intentional. I get to chip time out for them. Yeah, but there is definitely a balance, and I can find myself caught up in work. It's easy to do. It's easy.
Especially when it's something you love doing, like you were saying.
It's easy to do, you know. But you know, it's stated in the Bible that you got to take time. You got to celebrate the Sabbath, and the Sabbath doesn't necessarily have to be a Sunday, but it does have to be a day of rest, a day of, you know, a day of rest, and recognizing where does this life come from. So,
absolutely. I mean, we're in such a world of go all the time, bust your tail, do whatever it takes to get ahead, go, don't take a rest. And I've realized, I think one thing that COVID kind of forced us to do was take a Sabbath, in the term of sit down and take a second, take a breath, take a rest. That's what happened in my life. I know that's what happened in so many others' lives. And I think that really caused a cultural shift as well, once people realized, oh, you know, resting is actually good for me. I want to do that more. And I think we can tend to pendulum too far, where it's like, okay, now I only want to work 2 days a week and rest the rest 5. But one thing that I do really enjoy hearing is the idea of being intentional. And that intentionality carries over into every other aspect of business as well. You know, we were talking about a different location, and you were like, yeah, it wasn't going to work. But had it had worked, you would have had to be intentional, because that location would have needed total overhauling. That location would have needed, you know, because it didn't used to be a restaurant when it was there. And that intentionality just carries over into every single aspect. And I got to ask, how does that carry over into being a manager of people as well? Somebody who has gone from starting a catering business with one guy to all of a sudden you've got 2 locations with multiple employees. I mean, how do they crossbreed?
So in all fairness, you know, my background, I'm a behavioral scientist by trade. So I've had that leg up, and I've also I've been blessed with it, being able to manage, being a manager. At the end of the day, for my business, and what I sense, or in my opinion, in business, it's about the people. And you're going to hear, again, very cliche, but it's very much about the people. Because you can get this product in a lot of other places. You can get the same beverages, the same meat, the same bread. You can get the same exact thing from a lot of other places. And you know it's the same price. So I preach to my employees, why do they want to come here? Why? People are coming out and spending, and they're coming out to eat. You know what? We're trying to give them back an experience. How did you make them feel? How did you make your customer feel when they left? Did they feel a little bit put off? The good news is that employee or employees are able to create that experience. And so what do I get to do as an owner and as a manager? I too get to impart onto them their significance of something bigger than themselves. Their significance of how their role plays in the whole entire picture. How their significance is, in a matter of 6-7 years, we went from $278 out of a garage to here we are and being nationally known. That wasn't me. It was them. They've created something. And what did I get to do to find that out? As a behavioral scientist, I've always also been able to study different theories and things of that sort of what makes people tick, especially in the work environment. And there are 5 top things that people are looking for in their career and in their work. And everybody thinks it's work. or not work. Everybody thinks it's money. As a matter of fact, all these big places out there, well, what are they advertising? $15 an hour, $20 an hour, $10 an hour. That's what they're advertising, right? Out of the top 5 things that people are looking for in a job, it's number 5. You know what number 1 is? Recognition. Recognition, recognizing the efforts of what you're doing and how it's impacting not only here, but how it's going to impact your life. Because I also share with them what you do here will also impact what you do out there. So I know if you're half doing it here, you're half doing it out in life. The good news is you get to be intentional about how you do that. If you intend to be half, you will intend to be half out there too. If you want to have a full life, give a full here. The good news is you get paid.
That's true. It helps.
You get paid here. And it's habit forming. It's habit forming. So it's a life thing. It's taking ownership of what you're doing and being proud of what you have. Because I've done every single one of these jobs. Every one. There's not one I haven't done as a job. Not just to be trained in so that I know what someone is kind of doing. I've done them. And so I can appreciate what they're doing. But if they can recognize their importance of why they're doing what they're doing and how it makes the big picture even bigger, and to set in front of them what the goal is, what the big picture, and how do they play a part, then things happen. Most of my employees have years with me. Now that may not seem like a lot, but the turnover rate in the restaurant industry is north of 80%.
Wow.
The turnover rate. The percentage of a restaurant worker working in a restaurant for less than 1 year at the same place is 95%. So there's a 95% chance that if you hire that person, they're not going to be here at the end of the year. So when I say I've had my employees with me for years, the proof is in the pudding. Now, I'm not saying I'm all God and Almighty. I'm not that at all. But it is the golden rule. It is definitely the golden rule. Treat the way you want to be treated, right? So that's the beauty of it. My 2 employees that are here, the one that has the least amount of time here is 4 years. The other guy's 9 years. He started with me in the garage. He was the one that started with me in the garage. So we've been really blessed, man. We've been really blessed, and our hope is to keep growing. If that's the will of the Lord, if He wants us to grow, our hope is to grow. If not, to get bigger and to be able to make more money. You know, obviously as a business person, but also to give back to the community. You know, we can impact the community a lot. You know, the neat thing I love about food, the biggest thing I love about food is that's the common denominator of everybody in this world, whether you be an enemy or a foe or a whatever. We all have to eat. And food breaks down every barrier. You can be mad at each other, but you know what? You share and break bread, it's gone. You're all hungry. It's gone. You sit and you start eating. It's anything bad is erased. You're sharing it because you're living. It's part of living. That's what I love. That's what I love about food anyway. And that's what I love about that. And again, what's that boils down to? Community.
100%.
Community.
I love hearing that. And that's such a great note to kind of start to wrap up on as we come towards the end of this episode. This has been really fun just sitting here talking with you. And as we talk about Big Al's Barbecue, we've talked about the Ankeny and West Des Moines locations. Tell me, what's next? Do you have summer events that you cater? Do you just do catering? Or, you know, tell me a little bit, where can we find you? What can we look for on the horizon?
What's next? You know, this in Ankeny in particular, there's a lot of summer things that are happening at the district from what I understand, and there's a lot of country shows and a lot of summer fests and whatnot, and we're excited to be part of that. That being said, we also have a 37-foot fifth wheel food trailer with a smoker on it that we will be also using this summer.
Awesome.
And we'll also put on the other side yet of us during these times. So that's what's next. The other thing what's next is also we have a barbecue sauce that's in Hy-Vees now, not all of them, but that hopefully the barbecue sauce, if we can push, is that barbecue sauce will keep growing. And the reason why we have that barbecue sauce is that we are trying to raise money through selling the barbecue sauce, because each jar of barbecue sauce sold at Hy-Vee, a portion of it gets donated to Susan G. Komen to try to find the cure for breast cancer. That's what we're trying to do. That at the end of the day. So we hope that that's what's next. You know, we hope maybe we'll have another one of these. But again, we're plenty busy. We're plenty busy, but nationally, maybe a different type of restaurant. Maybe we've talked about it. But until then, you know, we'll just keep doing what we're doing, you know, and just trying to spread the word of the holy smoke.
Hey, there we go. I love it. Absolutely right. Keep doing what you're doing. Sounds like your employees love you. If you're keeping your employees for multiple years, I've worked in the restaurant industry. I get it. That's huge. So, look, Al, I wish you nothing but success, man. It was awesome sitting here talking with you and getting to know you, hear more about your business and your desire to spread the love through food and continue to just support the community. And so, yeah, make sure to come check out Al's locations in Ankeny and West Des Moines. Al, this has been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
You're welcome.